It even smells now.
Yeah. All ideal.
You're very good.
I go through all these ideal PhD sheets and we're teaching the languages.
The whole thing is not known in the design.
Oh, it's huge expenditure.
But it was necessary to come up to the level of the modern world.
I think so. There's a sort of young men that you're trained will be living in this world. It's their world.
That's the
My son at the Harvard Business School graduated last year. Part of your first year tuition is your own. You're all on the same system. So they practically, as far as I can see, pen and paper, my era, not listening. You're moving with the times, that's what must. One more president. Yes, sir. How are you, sir? Pleasure. How are you?
Islamic studies, custom studies. And apart from this, we have to take 4 major subjects.
Run a ship which has no relation to lessons. So it's always an additional course of you. And the university very grudgingly gave you a good
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم.
Gracious guest. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, I feel greatly privileged in extending to you an unreserved welcome to the oath-taking ceremony of the newly inducted prefects for the year 1994. We all know that His Excellency has onerous business to conduct in his capacity as Ambassador of the United States of America. It may very well not be within the sphere of our experience, but I assure you, it is definitely not beyond our imagination what claims your station has on your daily schedule. It is therefore a singular honor indeed to have you amongst us this afternoon, for which, Your Excellency, I cannot thank you enough. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, besides being a fine polyglot, is an authority on Southeast Asia. He comes, as you all know, from a land where individual and collective freedom forms the basis of society. Ambassador Monjo was born on July 17, 1931 in Stamford, Connecticut. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 1953 and served in the Navy from 1953 to 1956. In 1958, he joined the United States Foreign Service. Today, Ambassador Monjo is one of the senior professionals in the United States Foreign Service. Much of his over 30 years career has focused on Asia, beginning as a political officer in Phnom Penh in 1958 and then as commercial officer in Tokyo in 1961. After receiving advanced training of the Japanese language, he was again assigned to Tokyo as Economic Affairs Officer in 1964 and thereafter to the Department of Army in Okinawa in 1965. Ambassador Monjo also has had valuable experience in Washington, in the Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs, 1967 to 1969, as Director, Office of Philippine Affairs, 1978 to 1979, as Deputy Assistant Secretary for East Asian and Pacific Affairs from 1983 to 1985, and then as Senior Deputy Assistant Secretary, Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs from 1958 to 1987. He was political officer in Jakarta, Indonesia, 1971 to 76, principal officer in Casablanca, 1976 to 1978, Deputy Chief of Mission in Korea, 1979 to 1982, and then as Deputy Chief of the Mission in Jakarta, Indonesia, from 1982 to 1983. Islamabad is Ambassador Monjo's third ambassadorial assignment. He was United States Ambassador to Malaysia from 1958 to 1959, and then Ambassador to Indonesia from 1989 till 1992. President George Bush nominated Mr. Monjo as Ambassador to the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and the Senate confirmed him in October 1992. Ambassador and Mrs. Monjo arrived in Islamabad on November 6, 1992. In recognition of his outstanding services, he was decorated with numerous awards. He holds the Presidential Meritorious Services Award, the Superior Honor Award, and the Christian A. Carter Award. Your Excellency, in the end, I thank you once again for finding time to grace our function. My thanks are also due to the honorable guests and the ladies and gentlemen who have joined us this afternoon. Thank you very much.
With your permission, Your Excellency, I shall now administer the oath of office to the prefects for this year 1994. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman, I declare
That I shall abide
that I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
of my college,
my family,
and my country,
dear to me in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I,
Mia Faisal Bashir, Deputy Head Boy Lawrence College,
do solemnly declare
that
I shall abide
I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
my college,
my family,
and my country,
dear to me
in
in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I,
Mia Kashim Mushtaq, Deputy Head Boy Lawrence College,
do solemnly declare
that
I shall abide
I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
my family,
and my country,
dear to me
in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I
Rizwan Shabir, Prefect Jinnah House,
I, Sohail Ahmed Raja, Prefect Jinnah House,
do solemnly declare
do solemnly declare
that I shall abide
that I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
of my college,
my family,
and my country
dear to me in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I
Ashar Javed, Prefect Iqbal House,
I, Tahir Shah Khan, Prefect Iqbal House,
do solemnly declare
do solemnly declare
that I shall abide
that I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
of my college,
my family,
and my country
dear to me
in
in all my thoughts and deeds.
all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I
Umair Ali Chuktai, Prefect Tipu House,
I, Imran Ayaz, Prefect Tipu House,
do solemnly declare
do solemnly declare
that I shall abide
that I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
of my college,
my family,
and
my country
my country
dear to me
dear to me
in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I
I, Raja Imran Irfan, Prefect Babar House,
I, Raja Adnan Salim, Prefect Babar House,
do solemnly declare
do solemnly declare
that I shall abide
that I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
my college,
my family,
and my country
dear to me in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I
I, Munir a merchant, Prefect Day Boys,
do solemnly declare
do solemnly declare
that I shall abide
that I shall abide
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
by the rules and regulations of the Lawrence College,
carry out the duties entrusted to me
carry out the duties entrusted to me
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and keep the honor and prestige
and keep the honor and prestige
of my college,
my college,
my family,
and
my country
dear
to me
in
all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Bismillah.
And prestige
of my college,
my
family,
and
my country
dear to me
in all my thoughts and deeds.
in all my thoughts and deeds.
Deputy Head Boy, Faisal Bashir. Deputy Head Boy, Kashif Mushtaq. First Prefect, Jinnah House, Rizwan Shafiq. Second Prefect, Jinnah House, Sohail Ahmed Raja. First Prefect Iqbal House, Ashar Javed. First Prefect Ibu House, Omer Ali Chuktai. Second Prefect Ibu House, Imran Ayaz. First Prefect Babar House, Muhammad Imran Irfan. Second Prefect Babar House, Adnan Salim. Prefect Day Boys, Munir M. Merchant. Messing Prefect, Khurram Shahzad. Souvenir of His Excellency's visit, a memory of his coming there.
Malik, Principal, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me say how very happy I am to be here with you and among you. And if any of you wish to see that trophy, such kind play again, you have to come to my office. I have come to visit you, and I will have it on display with great honor where I work. But I thought before I spoke, and I speak from notes because I find it much more interesting, frankly, a little more informal. I'm speaking to friends with whom I feel very much at ease. But I was reminded as I first came here, and I was shaking hands with all the new prefects. They kindly greeted me outside, of a comment made by a very famous Olympic trainer. And someone asked him one time, what do you look for in a young athlete? And they expected an answer like big muscles or something or other. He said, no, I look into their eyes. Here with a group of people who are probably 30 years younger on the average than most of the people I deal with every day. And that, too, is another pleasure. I have gotten to know many distinguished middle-aged Pakistanis, but I don't get the chance so often to meet wonderful young Pakistanis. So that, too, is a very special time for me. Let me just make a few comments about why Pakistan is an important country to the United States and why our relationship, in my view, is a very important relationship. And then touch a little bit on what U.S. policy is, or at least as I see what it is, think what it is. And then sort of touch on a few points I think might be of mutual interest to us all. I think if you look at Pakistan, it is simply intrinsically a very important country of itself. There are 120 million or so Pakistanis. In another 25 or 30 years, there will be 250 million people who are Pakistani citizens, men and women. That is important. It is a very important moderate Islamic state. It has a history and a culture which are important. If nothing else were important, geography in the world would be important. You look at its crucial place in the world, near China, next to India, next to Iran, Afghanistan, and so forth, and more recently, the new states of the old Soviet Union, which are Islamic and which look to Pakistan, I think, as a leader and as a sort of a large friend to the South, economically and politically. So for these reasons alone, if there were no other reasons, Pakistan would be very important country. There are plenty of other reasons. The United States and Pakistan, if you look at a bilateral sense, start with a long friendship. I used to deal quite a bit with Dr. Kissinger, and he used to speak of how kind Pakistan had been to him when he was Secretary of State, how much we worked together. We were starting to recognize China, how much we worked together Afghanistan, most recently Somalia, and so forth. So I think one can make the point that for a whole lot of reasons, too many to enumerate, including economic, we are very important countries for one another. So I start with the feeling that what I'm doing, or trying to do, which is to improve relations between our countries, is a really most interesting and important job, not because I'm important, but because the job is important. And therefore I feel particularly honored. It's always an honor to be doing something that you think is worthwhile doing in a country that you have a lot of regard for. So there I am, what you say, push kismat is my face in life. Let me describe a little bit of the foreign policy of the United States, and then try and put the relations between our two countries a little bit in that context. If you look at what's going on in the last 2 years, the foreign policy context for the United States and for Pakistan and for everybody virtually has changed quite a bit. It wasn't too long ago we had the Cold War, and virtually everything that we did the Soviets would oppose, and vice versa, to be quite fair. If they suggested something in Security Council, we were against it, and so it went. Therefore, the world was sort of divided into two divides. We in Pakistan were very much on the side together, and we know which countries were finding themselves on the other side. The end of the Cold War, I think, has been a very good thing, obviously. Look at the countries that have gotten their freedom or freedom back, if you will. Look at the countries such as Tajikistan and so forth, who have a chance to develop for themselves, by themselves, in the way they want, with their own ideology, religion, and so forth, that didn't have that chance. However, I think anybody looking at the television or the newspapers today would have to admit that it's maybe a more complicated world than it used to be. Maybe better in some ways, but it's certainly more complicated. Look at the divisions that we have now, the fracturing of the world. Having said that, there are new organizations in this part of the world which are very hopeful. You look at Southeast Asia, you have ASEAN. You look here, you have the SARC and an Economic Cooperation Organization, all of which I think are new groupings which are healthy groupings. The conflicts, however, which we are seeing in the world, a lot of which Pakistan is very interested in, are pretty daunting, pretty serious stuff. I don't think anybody in the United States really thought that Yugoslavia was going to explode like it did, and we were going to have ethnic and even worse, perhaps, religious war, which is causing the misery it is today, and which we, Pakistan, are trying, as best we can see how, to help bring to a resolution. Even the war in Afghanistan, which ended with the end of the jihad and the expulsion of people who were there, who invaded, has not brought peace. Now we see what is apparently a struggle among different forces in Afghanistan. Again, Pakistan plays a very strong role. We are trying to be helpful, but no one can say that peace has been achieved. And one can go on. We can speak of Somalia, where Pakistan has a large group of very good soldiers indeed. In Cambodia, where you've had a group until just recently, and a whole list of other problem places in the world, which I think are pretty daunting problems. Let me touch on a couple of things, a couple of areas that we sort of call transnational. They're problems, they're challenges that touch everybody, almost at least any country of any size and magnitude, such as yours and ours. The first one, perhaps we worry about, and which I think we'll touch on a little bit later, is the whole question of non-proliferation in the world and our concern over the continuing proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Pakistan, I think, largely shares that concern. Pakistan, for example, which has come out with some very interesting proposals for control of missiles, South Asia, and regional meetings and so forth. So I look at Pakistan as basically a very strong non-proliferator with special concerns about its own defense. Second, I think we have to worry about is dangers posed by regional powers, be it Iraq invading Kuwait, being at larger countries going after smaller countries in a regional context, which in the old days perhaps
the Cold War kind of kept under control. For good or for bad, people didn't have that opportunity. Third, which worries us quite a bit, is whether the new Russia, remains of the former Soviet Union, will be able to establish a democratic procedure, tradition for themselves, some kind of economic stability. I think it's axiomatic that if you have a big country, important country, which is not finding its way towards the light, towards a democratic future, it is going to be a troubled country, unstable, and may well destabilize other people, the rest of us around the world. And I think then there are just simply social and economic problems around the world. If you have enormous amounts of overpopulation, scourge of narcotics, and environment, these are problems which I think we all have to face. It doesn't make much difference whether we are Pakistani, Brazilian, American, or whatever. If our country is plagued by those problems, they will be real social problems. I would make one note, which is the young people here may not notice this change so much, but anybody my age will tell you about the importance of television. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you read about things in the newspapers, you heard about them on the radio. At the beginning of television you saw, but you didn't see it in your house every day. I think that is one of the reasons that, and it's a good reason, that Somalia, that Bosnia has evoked such enormous reaction in the United States. People have actually seen this. And they look at the television and they say, that is intolerable. The world should not live with that kind of suffering. That, I think, brings very much home to people today what's going on in the rest of the world. There really isn't any place in the world that's that far away. And I think that that is a factor, probably for the good, but certainly a factor we can't escape. I think we have to look in the United States a little bit as we talk about our relations with Pakistan, as we talk about our relations with anybody, as to our own domestic strengths. People in the United States, I think like people in any country, are not satisfied with everything they see. We see in the United States race problems, we see narcotics problems, we see unemployment, we see degrees of poverty. These things we feel are not what we want our society to be. We see also good things, but the bad things you try to correct. Therefore, our policies as they externalize themselves abroad reflect some of our goals, our aspirations, and our worries at home. It has to be that way. We worry about health care. We worry about crime. We worry about narcotics. I'm quite certain the Pakistanis, when they pick up the newspapers, if you read something good, it makes you feel better. If you read about some troubles in one of your cities or whatever, as we do in some of our cities, it worries you. These things will affect how you look outside, I think, as well as how you look inside upon yourself. I think there are people who say, well, the United States is turning inward now. It's all very well to look at your inward problems, but don't you have some responsibility to your neighbors or your friends around the world? I would not overplay the worry about our looking too much inward. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're looking inward in the idea of trying to, clean up our own house and have our own house in good order so that we indeed are strong enough and are capable enough to be some use to your friends. If you have too many problems at home, you're really not much use to your neighbor either. So I think that if you look at what we're trying to do at home in that context, not as turning our back on the world, I think you will probably be more correct. Let me touch on a couple of points just to try and illustrate that thought. The reason, one of the major things that people around the world want of the United States is trade, economic involvement. We're a rich country, we're an economically strong country. Well, let's trade, let's work together. If you look recently at the signing of the GATT in Marrakesh, that was an enormous struggle in the United States. But I'm proud to say that both parties, it was President Bush and President Reagan who pushed it, and President Clinton who finished up the pushing. So we finally said we will sign on. It was really bipartisan. Both parties said we cannot turn our back on the world, we cannot become isolationists, we cannot become protectionists. There are differing shades of opinion, but that is fairly much a national consensus. If you look at the North American Free Trade Association, it's passed with more Republican votes than Democrats. So we do have, to some extent, a bipartisan policy a good investor in the world. There again, I think I'm trying to make the point, I hope I'm making it, that we are trying to be engaged, and we will be engaged, and we're not turning our backs, either economically or politically or in a variety of ways that one might imagine on the world. Having said that, I think we, and perhaps the United Nations, are learning some difficult lessons, if that's the right word. Perhaps not every conflict can be resolved in the same way. I think people are distressed, but at least my country, I think, has said in places like Rwanda, we're not sure we can be helpful. We'd like to be helpful. There's a tribal warfare amongst people that we don't understand very well, and we don't quite know what you can do. A fundamentalist Muslim, obviously, is a good Muslim. We think a good Christian is a fundamentalist Christian in the sense that they believe the tenets of their faith, the Quran, the Bible, as you view it. What we mean by that, and that's why I don't use the word, is extremism. Political extremism wearing the mantle or the robe of religion. And as a non-Muslim, it's not for me to judge, but I'm told by all of my Muslim friends that a group that says every foreigner in a country should be killed no matter who he or she is, that's extremism, that's not my thought. I'd just like to make the point, because we read this all the time, and I know some of my friends say, well, really, is the United States becoming anti-Islamic? And the answer is no. Next time you visit, you'll find the mosque operating in virtually every city in the United States. I just wanted to touch on that because sometimes there's a misunderstanding on that. The meaning is extremism. I, therefore, never use the term extremism, but I do see it as a question. Let me touch a little bit on U.S.-Pakistan relations. There's good things and the things that we have to accept as challenges, things that we have to work on or work at, and I say work together on it. I think partly the fact that we are both democracies, therefore we have a lot in common in that sense. We are both relative countries of a religion, people of the book, if that's the right word, by and large. I think that's a similarity. We have worked together very closely since partition, of course, in a personal sense, even before partition. Be it during the Cold War, when Pakistani used to say we're your most allied ally. We have worked together in Afghanistan. We've worked together in Somalia, where our troops fought together, where your troops remain with a lot of honor indeed. There are whole areas. We share a view on world economy, which I think is relatively close, relatively open market economy, with safeguards, of course, not rampant destruction of the economy, but we share those views. When it comes to things that we do in a personal sense, Pakistanis honor the United States in three major ways. One is a lot of young people go to study there. And that, to me, is the most valuable thing, asset you have is your young people. If you send them to another country to study for part of their education, that's a great honor for the other country. People who need medical care often go to the United States. You don't go there unless you feel at home and comfortable. And people going for a good time sometimes will visit. The ulta reverse is that any American who's ever served here turns out to be a wonderful spokesman, spokeswoman for Pakistan. So I find, despite cultures that are somewhat different, an enormous amount of empathy between our two countries. Any professor in the United States will tell you, any professor, any dean, that when they meet new students from a foreign country, they don't worry about the Pakistanis. Pakistanis will very shortly have their friends in their context. They have that warmth, that empathy. So these are areas of great strengths. I think we ought to, however, base our relations, especially all the young people here, on the future. You can be proud of the past, you can be happy you work together, but we must find those things that we can work together in the future to strengthen the relationship. What's good is good, but you want to make it better. In the past year, if I may say so, we have overcome some stressful, worrying things. There were allegations of support in Pakistan for activities in Kashmir that could be labeled as terrorism. That has been put aside. We had problems over immigration. We had some problems over narcotics, a lot of which have been improved and bettered. So I think if you talk about the things we've done together, that's good. I am noticing an increase in the number of business people who come wanting very much to invest in Pakistan and trade it. That, I think, is good. If you look at the level of interchange between our two countries, I think it has gone up. We just recently had Deputy Secretary Talbot, who has, among other advantages, having been in Oxford with President Clinton, so that's a nice start, visiting here. We had General Wahid visiting the United States. President Lagarde himself will be going on an informal visit to the United States to see his son graduate from the university and then to have some interesting conversations. That too is good. We are seeing a interchange of people at the top, which I think reflects the warmth of the relationship throughout. Let me not fail to touch on one problem that we have, one challenge. I'm not trying to paint a picture with all pink clouds and no gray clouds. We have some gray clouds up there right now. There's a bit of rain. We have what is called the Kessler Amendment. Let me describe that a little bit. In 1985 or 6, with the concurrence, the support of the then Pakistan government, I think it was General Z in those days, an amendment was passed to an economic assistance bill which said that if Pakistan crossed the line into having a nuclear capability, certain kinds of assistance would end. It was judged that that happened, and some of the assistance was cut off. We are trying to work on that right now. That's the subject of some of our discussion. So I guess what I'm trying to say, in sum and closing, not to speak too long, is that there are large areas of closeness in our relationship, overlapping of our interests, very basic interests, democratic interests, respect for people, respect for their religion, desire for a vibrant economy, importance that we give to religious freedom, to education. These are all similarities. We have certain differences on certain policy matters. I do not see them as fundamental differences in how we look at the world. And I think the strengths of the fundamental similarities will carry us and make it possible for us to work on and eventually work through to a solution to these other areas. So these are sort of the general themes that I wanted to share with you today, because it's sort of a chance for me to share some of my thoughts with the rising generation of your country, the people who will be the movers and shakers, the people who make things happen in the years to come. Let me say again that for myself and my family, just my wife and I, my children are of course grown up, as you can tell by my age. They're already adults. But for my wife and me, this is a remarkably wonderful experience. And the Pakistan ki dostana mahal brahma muli hai. And it's even kind of unfair. I think on that note I would end. If I may tell you one sort of joke at the very end. In my younger years, I knew a remarkably nice, wonderful old gentleman who is no longer with us, and that was General Romulus, who was the foreign minister of the Philippines when he was somewhere between 85 and 90, and we never asked. He was getting along in years. He had been president of the University of the Philippines, ambassador to the United States, all sorts of things. Very witty old gentleman. The last man alive who had walked ashore with MacArthur, and the last man alive to be the founding father of the United Nations. So he was quite a historical gentleman. And he said to me, John, he said, when you give a speech, you follow the rule of the 3 ups. I said, General, what is that? He liked to be called General, despite the fact he was minister. We always called him General. He said, well, John, he said, first you stand up. He stood up very straight. He wasn't very tall, he stood straight. He said, and then you speak up. Yes, sir. He said, and then you shut up.